year as a club, so they've been operating for 3 years. One is our ski club, and we would recommend 2 advisors at a Class F level, which is outlined below. The art club, which is also in its 3rd year, we would recommend funding 1 advisor at a Class D level, which is outlined below. Our gaming club, again, which is at the middle school, we would recommend funding 2 advisors at the Class F level. Kind of looking at that current data, the team spent, we spent 2 to 3 hours talking about what makes that up, and there were 3 other clubs that came forward to us that the committee denied at this point. So just so you know, that's kind of how that committee works. Carolyn joined us a couple times last year with that committee and how they operate. We'll always notice those, and you're welcome to join us at those committee meetings, but I think it's an important committee. We looked at some alternative funding, both Julie and Brent, at being able to fund these, and we feel that we are, we do have within our budget the ability to add these positions.
Do we currently, I know years ago we talked about, the only one that ever seems to pay are the athletes. Can we, do any of these kids within that club pay?
They all pay.
So they all pay within these clubs?
They pay for their ride, they pay for their lift. So none of this money, they don't have a budget.
Right.
It's no money for the individual kids, it's to have advisors there, scheduled advisors. But if you're in the ski club, it's 100% funded by you, as a kid and a parent.
Okay.
The art club is also funded, so if you're gonna do X project,
Yep.
then you're funding that. So if you're gonna do a play project, you're funding that. As a student, you're paying for those materials. And the gaming club, we went after donations for that. So that's, a lot of video games. It's video gaming. So Mr. Reinschmidt went around the community and got a lot of donations for that.
Okay, do all our other extracurricular, choir, band, are they paying any type of fee as well?
They are.
Okay, so they
They
all
are.
pay something in, so they're paying, at least the advisors are
Or
going
they're
to.
fundraising.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, or they're fundraising. So we just, and the other thing that was important to our committee is that it's year 3. So we did have some come forward that said, we'd like to start a club. Would you be willing to fund it for us to start it? These 3 clubs have shown that they've got great participation and active participation by a lot of kids. So that's why we recommended them at the level that we did.
These clubs, some of them fit students who just aren't, want to be in the athletics. Or maybe some of the silent sports like downhill skiing or gaming, and just opportunity for more kids to.
I just want to disagree that gaming is not a sport.
Yeah.
No matter how much my kids want to convince me that it is not.
I have a question, is this how much they're paid then for the whole season? Like-
Yes, that's how much they're
So
paying
how
for the
many
whole
more
season.
hours does that art club have than the people? that-
Tremendous. That was the difference, Caroline, because the amount of times that they met and the amount of hours that they put into the club. So that's what's classified them in whatever class.
Well, I think they should add the number of hours that these people put in. because
They
I
did
know-
in their
I know-
proposal.
I mean, up here, showing up, because
Oh,
I know the ones that are at the ski hill are there a long time, from the time they leave school until the time they leave, go back home again. So, and I understand that, and this would be nice if be on there, so it's,
sure.
like the
20.
Some of those clubs last all year long and some
Yeah,
are
one
just
of
when
the,
there's
one of the
snow.
questions on the form that they have to fill out is the duration of the activity. And for example, the art club is 30 to 39 weeks, so that was quite a bit of a difference for them. And then the average length of each session, they're meeting each week for 60 to 90 minutes. The amount of training and the work and all of that they do. So it's quite a long form that each proposal fills out. And a difference between that and the ski club when you take a look at that. And that's what's great about this committee of about a dozen people, is that they debate it back and forth, the amount of hours. I think this, and Donna, you're kind of a part of that. And we have good debates, right?
One of the key debates was, we can't keep adding things if we don't take things away. There's only set amount of money. So then we also looked at the current miscellaneous compensation schedule to see what we had, is it still a viable opportunity, or do we need to look at it? Because if you're gonna add 3 more, you should look at possibly taking 3 more away. So the discussion was very lengthy and very involved, but very good.
And one comment I'd make on when we're talking about the clubs is assigning hours would be something I would advise against, because Carolyn, they're basically receiving a salary to do that, and then you create the issue, as you said, it would be this many hours, and now if it takes more hours, then you're creating potentially some wage and hour issues, which you wanna avoid if you can.
They put, they just put the approximate hours for us. So when we look at the gaming, they took attendance for the last couple of years, they average 40 kids per time that they meet 20 to 29 weeks.
Additionally, we talked about in the discussion that it isn't just the club right there on paper. A lot of it depends on who's running the club, and maybe the art club in previous years might have not been as strong as what it is right now, and the amount of kids and the time length that they're doing it. We felt what we're seeing right now is pretty significant.
So then did you take a look at also eliminating the
Yeah.
whole?
Mhm.
And did you have to eliminate any?
We found 2 clubs that weren't currently in existence, that weren't being paid, so we went back to payroll and we did find 2 clubs that weren't active anymore.
Okay,
So, and then we also looked at additional title type of funding that's there for student behavior incentive. Since you have to be in good standing to be able to attend and be a part of the events. So we talked about having the positive behavior incentive dollars that are now available out there through our Title IV dollars, that possibly we could use that to fund the event. Because again, it's a behavior incentive for kids to be able to go and be a part of a club, so
Right.
that's helpful. And when we look at the ski and the gaming club, those are new to the middle school, and the art club is the high school.
I will second.
We have a motion by Kaiser, seconded by Gorman to approve the 3 clubs as outlined by the compensation committee. Further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number C is the discussion and possible decision, recording of meeting minutes when approving expenditures. So Corey brought this forward. Whenever we have an expenditure that's approved, we should capture the dollar amount in the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Corey, did you want to add anything?
I'd say I would think it should be a direct matter of, I don't know, I'm guessing it should be a matter of policy, that the meeting minutes always reflect the monetary values that we spend. If we were to do that as a matter of policy, then I think Neola should formulate that policy and present it to us at some future date. In the meantime, I'm sure that Ms. Alice is more than capable of recording those expenditures as we approve them.
What dollar amount, Cory?
The dollar amounts approved,
Any dollar amount.
What is it, about the $10,000?
any dollar amount
Any
approved.
dollar.
So I take it like in you're hiring a new staff member and we read the personnel committee and you read the amount of, that's what we're saying, okay?
You know, for example, like, if we spend, a certain amount of money, in the presentation, you always have the money.
Yep.
But it's just how we've been capturing the notes.
Okay.
So we
Public,
just, we have
public looks at our meeting minutes.
minutes, so we have to have that.
And that information not in there, it's an incomplete minute.
So Corey, just so I'm clear on that, like if you look at item 10B that we just discussed, the cost of the additional 4 positions that we just talked about, you think that should be reflected approved this at a cost of this for these clubs, or just in
Well,
purchasing?
let's let Neola, right. But we just spent, a lot of money the last meeting, we spent a lot of money this meeting, and our minutes weren't reflecting of those numbers. That needs to be corrected. I'm not saying I'm qualified to make the,
Legal argument either way.
yeah, but the public needs to understand, and that's where we communicate with the public most, is through our meeting minutes.
I think that's a good point.
Further discussion from the board? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. A motion by Zebro, seconded by Lewis, to record meeting minutes, expenditures within meeting minutes Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries as well. Did you, Corey,
Yes.
you wanted you had an item of new business?
I have a letter to read and an announcement to make. President Alice, months ago, we saw evidence in one of our meetings that Member Gorman had spoken with other board members about an agenda item planning to sway the vote or direction of the board, a practice referred to as a walking quorum. I have heard of yet more information suggesting that members of this board are working together behind the scenes and outside of the legally scheduled open meetings. Just since our last meeting, we have seen 2 instances where board member Thiel has sent out emails claiming to be, and I quote, speaking for a majority of the board, end quote. How does Mr. Thiel know he speaks for the majority of the board unless he has taken time to work behind the scenes to forward an opinion or on an agenda item? Clearly, this board is not functioning well. And I suspect that several members of this board are functioning outside of the rules of law. It is your leadership responsibility to manage this governing body, and these circumstances require you to take action. I am asking that you report this concern to the Marathon County District Attorney's Office as a possible violation of ethics by this board. And I further ask that you report this concern to our school attorney, Dean Dietrich, so as to protect the interests of the school district and its taxpayers from further harm. To be sure you understand the full weight of this issue, know that these tasks are not a either-or scenario. They are tasks that both need to be done. President Alice, I am respecting the Office of the President of School by giving you the opportunity to address or to provide this necessary leadership. If you fail in your duty to protect the citizens of the district by not reporting this, I will. I am providing a copy of this statement to our Secretary, Amy Hallis, as to accurately be reported as part of our meeting minutes. I am providing a copy to both you and our superintendent. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 11, Curriculum and Standards Committee Meeting Report. 11A, report from the November 2017 meeting.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. We met on November 6th as the Curriculum and Standards Committee. We really had one major item that we were discussing in terms of the function of that committee is really to look at some of our vision, accountability, and agenda items related to our strategic plan and our school mission and vision in the area of curriculum and standards. And really we covered 2 major things at our last meeting in November. One was in the closing of achievement gaps area. We talked about how we had a large team of teachers who were involved in training on October 26th during their in-service day in what we call PBIS, which is Positive Behavioral Intervention Supports for Students. That is part of our response to intervention. When we think about supports we provide for students on the academic realm, we have core curriculum and interventions that we can put into place all the way up through, for example, special education for students as a response to their needs. There's also the other side of the pyramid that starts with the behavioral, social, emotional supports we provide for kids. So the district has been diligent in adhering to both the academic and social emotional needs of students, as other state districts in the state are required to do. And PBIS is fulfilling that need in terms of providing teachers and students the opportunity to have their expectations, behavioral expectations for school very clear to them, have teachers reinforcing and teaching those behaviors, acknowledging those behaviors, and putting together incentives for students to continue to show very positive school climate types of behaviors. So that's a lot of words. That just means we're really trying to help and support kids socially and emotionally. We have lots of kids with varying needs, and not every student who listens to a teacher's expectations in a classroom can do that with great fidelity. Kids have a lot of different needs. We have mental health needs, we have family needs, we have lots of things that are apparent in our communities and our societies, no matter where you live and what demographic you live in. And we are doing our best as a school to respond to those needs with varying levels of interventions that we as schools are able to provide. So it was a great day. We had members of the team at Curriculum and Standards, and Kayla Bird, one of our special ed teachers, who is leading the charge at the elementary level along with her counterparts in middle school and high school, give us some nice details about what they did that day in terms of implementing the facets. It's kind of like curriculum for behavior and responses for behavior at all 3 levels. So that was a great, it built our capacity for all of us on the committee in terms of curriculum for behavioral and social emotional needs. And then the other large piece that we spent most of the evening on is we have a huge task that as a district is really, really valuable in terms of what we call assessing our guaranteed and viable curriculum. Teachers on October 26th and on their collaboration Mondays have been working on what we call mapping their curriculum. And I just have a handout so you can just get a visual for what a curriculum map. This would just be a unit plan. There's also a course plan. I just want to take one and pass that down. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Just to give you a visual of what that looks like and how critically important that is, we talked through, we did a little bit of discussion as a team on, yes, what does that look like in terms of what are teachers doing, what is the importance of the time spent on mapping. It's not just putting things we teach on paper. What this is really doing is meeting the need and the necessity of alignment to what we teach to the standards. That's the first and foremost role of going through this process. There's a lot of collaboration that occurs among teachers in grade levels, in departments, surrounding the courses they teach at the high school, the grade level expectations aligned to the standards at the K-8 level, and then they begin to look at, which standards are we covering? Are we, we look at gaps and repetitions. Are we teaching our multiple grade levels of departments hitting the same standard? Are we missing some standards in the curriculum that we teach? Because we are accountable for having our curriculum aligned to the standards. The other huge piece, and there's probably a lot of education needs words on there that maybe don't make any sense to you, but the other really strong facet and piece to this process is that you have a lot of collaboration among teachers looking at how are we assessing what we teach? How do we know when students have learned it? What do we do when they have and when they have not? That's really the basics of what we do and how critically important having your curriculum mapped out in terms of units you teach through the year in different content areas and courses so that we can best look at what are the needs of our students, how are we responding when they're not meeting proficiency of the standard, and what other supports are available through our responses to intervention that we can provide for them. So it was a great day. We are, go ahead.
I just want to add that you had a couple teachers that gave a report during the time when they were building this.
Yes.
And how they said it was so nice because when they came in, they were just given a sheet of paper and said, have at her. So now they're building this and they're passing it along,
Thank you.
which I thought that was quite
Yeah,
interesting.
thank you for adding that. It is. It really ties to so much that we do. It ties to our student outcome scores. It ties to our school improvement planning. It ties to our response to interventions. So it seems like, this looks like not a very big deal. Teachers are just putting what they do on paper. But it really does drive a lot of the initiatives and support a lot of the needs and student outcome scores for our kids. So we wanted the committee to have just a stronger understanding of what happens on in-service days and collaboration Mondays, so that we can make that time when it's applicable to some of our initiatives that we're moving towards in the district. So that really was the meat of our meeting. So in terms of the night and the evening, any questions or thoughts about that evening? No? Okay. Would you like me to move on to the next piece with the extended field trips and courses?
Sure.
Not to steal your thunder, but
No, go ahead.
keeping us
Item
moving.
B.
Okay. We also had, through curriculum and standards, we also look at extended field trips and new course proposals as part of the function of our committee. So we did have 2 extended field trip requests that were brought forward to the curriculum and standards meeting on November 6th. One of them was from Lori Natsky, who is a high school teacher, looking to take students on a field trip in collaboration with DC Everest students to Eastern Europe in the summer of 2019. So she's planning ahead, has worked with Mr. Lehman to produce There's quite an extensive planning, as I've mentioned before, that goes into an extended field trip, especially out of the country. And working with, which many schools do, this EF Educational Tours do a great job. Both of the field trips tonight are being presented by that company in terms of insurance, safety precautions, and measures for students. So Lori is looking to have this field trip approved. Both of these field trips tonight were unanimously recommended by our committee for approval this evening. The second field trip was by Katie Murat. She is the art teacher at the high school. She has made a request to visit Paris, Normandy, and London in Europe over spring break of 2019, so a year from this spring break. And this tour would be highly correlated with some of the art standards and design standards, with some of her students probably focusing on kids who have an interest in that area as well. So both of them were recommended by our committee, and tonight we're requesting approval for the field trip from the full board.
And I will make that motion to approve both trips.
I'll second it.
So the motion by Gorman, seconded by Lewis to approve both European field trips.
Yeah.
Further discussion from the board? Hearing none, what?
I'd like to go.
I know. Great opportunities for kids, I must say.
Lori, take that into consideration. You've got it.
You chaperone.
I'm sorry. Hi, Lori. Did I miss anything? No.
Got it.
Okay.
Any further discussion from the board?
We have all safety concerns are addressed. And so we can do this again.
One of the things that we added to our extended field trip request form several years ago when or about a year ago, I think, with the concerns about travel abroad, is at the very bottom of the trip, as the students, or as Lori prepares for her trip, she will need to call and Nate will need to verify access to the Department of Homeland Security updates, verify access to Department of State, verify contact with the consulate and that contact information. Just prior to the trip, Homeland Security travel alerts, they have to be documented, and Nate is aware of that. Center for Disease Control alerts have to be contacted in the American consulate. So all of those T's have to be crossed and I's have to be dotted. Although you've approved this, all of these things have to go through on that form as well. Which is why we make sure that Lori checks in what is the refundable dollars and what is all of that insurance on the trip in case something would happen.
And EF Educational Tours helps walk us through all that, I assume?
They take care of pretty much everything.
They're really good.
And that's why we partner with a company that's done this. They've done it for almost 60 years, so.
Thank you.
Further discussion for the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries as well. Item 11C, discussion and possible decision, approval of new course proposals, advanced placement music theory, leadership development, heightened communication, and food science.
Great. We had 4 great new course proposals coming to us in terms of the first. Kurt Campbell is proposing an AP Music Theory class. It's a 1-credit replacement course for the current music theory offering that would also give students that AP opportunity. And you know, when these courses come through curriculum and standards, they do talk about what materials and or dollars need to be attached to adding any courses, whether it's equipment, materials, textbook, online, paper copies of textbook materials. So that is also part of what we discuss in the committee when we make the recommendation for approvals, and those would 9 times out of 10, unless there is another, sometimes Mr. Lehman has opportunities to fund some of these through some other funding sources. But many times when I'm looking at my budgetary constraints with curriculum and instruction dollars, those are, between the two of us, we're supporting most of the costs here. The other course was Tom McCarty is bringing forth a new class, a leadership development class, working on what we would normally call soft skills, helping students to build their capacity for a variety of things, including gaining employment, with job interviewing and working with, you know, it's an independent study class looking to fill that gap between the rigor of what academic courses offer and the soft skills needed to obtain jobs with that great knowledge and content with the student. So his again, it would be an independent study class, either a quarter credit or half credit, depending on the amount of students who are interested in obtaining that credit. Anna Kaiser is one of our English teachers. She has proposed a written communication class as a replacement for the current research and composition at the senior level. And the important part about this class is it fills that student need aimed at our technical two-year college workplace aimed students that they felt that were lacking in at that level in our English department. And lastly, Sue Swinick is offered a unique opportunity in that it would be a dual credit class called Food Science that would be offered in 1819. She's collaborating with one of our science teachers, Matt Lindsay, to offer this food science course. You go through what you call a crosswalk through the DPI, which allows you to obtain another content area required for graduation credit, which is science, through an encore opportunity such as consumer education and the foods class. So Sue is also looking for a recommendation. The committee approved all 4 courses for the 18-19 school year, and tonight we're requesting approval for all 4 courses from you as our board.
And I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Gorman, seconded by Kramer. Further discussion for the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries as well. Item number-
Alice, I do have one quick update, if I could, that's within, that just came out today. I just want to let you know the state report cards came out today, so I couldn't share this with you because it's hot off the press today, until today, so I just want to give you a copy. If there's not enough there,
Is this
let
what
me
we were
know.
emailing?
Yes,
Yes.
I sent out an email today. The state report card public embargo was lifted today, which means that on the DPI website, that the link would be in the letters that I shared with all of you today, or that Amy shared with you today via email. The state report cards across the state of Wisconsin, the embargo was lifted today, so you can go onto the DPI website right now if you Googled state report cards in Wisconsin, and you have access to any of the state report cards at the elementary, middle, high school, however they're differentiated out in the state of Wisconsin. And we're very proud and pleased to say that our Mosinee, overall, you get an elementary score, which is in the letters you received via email today. We get a middle school score, we get a high school score, and then we also get a district overall score based on specific criteria that you see on the front of that handout I just gave you. And as a district, we're very proud to say that we received a score of 75, which is in the exceeds expectations area, based on our student outcome scores, the growth our students are obtaining, our absenteeism rates and graduation rates, and the engagement factors that we provide for kids. So it is a really great celebration, and we'll be talking more about this at our curriculum and standards meeting in December, and we can bring back any questions or more details for you at the December board meeting. But just wanted to make sure that you were aware of some great successes that are happening here in Mosinee in terms of our sport.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yes.
They had this on the news tonight.
Yes,
The
they
area schools, yes. This is awesome.
Moving on to item 12, the building committee meeting report.
We're gonna allow Mr. Kaiser.
Sure.
All right. Just want to bring forward a few things. As you know, we're working with Nexus to revise our energy requirement needs, going through a piece of our equipment. So we've been spending lots of time with them, looking at our high school and middle school site right now. The picture you see before you, up in the upper right-hand corner, is a tenant displacement air ventilation system. That is the type of system we are looking at using in the majority of our classrooms. I did go to a tour from WASP, looked at the new system they just installed, and then focus on the teachers in those areas. And I also talked to a school in Yakuza that did a system a year ago and see how they were handling it, they were very pleased with it, very quiet. We have unit ventilators in the majority of our classrooms, and they're loud, everybody has an issue with that. These units do not have a fan in them, they're based actually on a unit that's feeding 100% fresh air up onto the roof. So that will be in place, and each room will be getting 100% outside air. And these units that you see have the ability to add additional heating and cooling in those rooms, so everybody will have a thermostat in that room. But to feed these units, of course, we have hot water in our building, and we also are going to add some chilled water units to supply that to the whole facility. And that being said, some of the chilled water that we're going to be using today will go to retrofit some of our other units that are actually from 1996 that work fine, but the DX cooling is not operational or has never had DX units. So we're going to use our new chilled water system in our high school and our middle school to basically take over our entire facility. That'll help us out in a lot of respects because chilled water is very forgiving, and the amount of volume that can be in the system will actually help our building dehumidify better. And these units, like I said, put 100% outside air to this classroom, which we do not have at the current time to level the 3 years. So that is a huge benefit for us. If you could bring the map up, that would be fine. Sure. So I just gives you an overlay. Right now, we are in the process of putting the whole project together. We have a meeting on December 6th, and that'll be at about a 50% design rate. So we've been kind of working through the buildings, working with structural people to see what can fit where, what the roofs can hold. So it gives us a map, but really when we get done with our facility, we're going to be in a lot of areas. Like areas you see in the blue, those are existing systems that are going to be retrofitted. So the core is going to stay the same, but we're going to change the units that feed all that. I'm not going to get in depth with that, but just know that we're going to be in a lot of areas, and not only just HVAC, it'll be electrical as well. A lot of our controls are going to be going in at the same time. If you just bring this up for a second. Sure. So I just want to give you kind of a quick snapshot. I won't beat this to death, but if you look at a typical classroom, what you see typically is an overhead duct system that feeds these areas. Usually that evolves about 1.5 CFM per square foot to mix the outside air with the system. How these work, the unit up in the upper right hand corner brings 100% fresh outside air into that classroom. It basically floods the floor. And as that happens, everyone that sits in the desk, naturally, we basically become a natural chimney because you're putting off heat. The cold air will go over the top of you and cool you. And in wintertime, it's also just heat to the floor as well. But the key piece I want to put to you is the air that comes off the ceiling that's displaced has all your contaminants, all your CO, it's all up in that area. That goes out to that unit up on the roof, and inside the unit, there's a wheel in there, a big energy wheel. So all that fresh air that comes to that classroom gets 100% fresh outside air. That energy that you already spent to heat that space or cool that space is being returned to that unit, and the wheel inside basically is absorbing the energy, and it turns very slowly, but what it's doing is preheating all the air that comes into the building. So that's where your energy is. We have units just like this at our elementary school that feeds our new wing. And it works very well. It's been in the industry for a long period of time. So that's how this system is going to be working in the majority of our classrooms. It doesn't function in every environment, but it works very well in the classroom environment. And then, like I said, we'll do